Very loud. So, thank you so much everyone for being here. I know it's like the last session of today. We're all very tired, so I'm especially grateful that you all decided to join this, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. My name is Teresa. I'm part of ESN Hamburg, so the German delegation, although I'm Spanish. And you are here because you are interested in inclusion and space exploration, rocket science, and so on. So a little bit about me. I studied my bachelor's in Spain in electrical engineering or communications engineering, and now I am doing a PhD in space communications. So I work a lot with the European Space Agency and all of these big names that are not really that relevant, but okay. So if you joined the panel discussion that we had about women in STEM, you will know that this is specifically an area in which there are very, very few women. And the only person or the only woman working in my institute in this research area. And when I did my internship at the European Space Agency, we were two girls for a floor of about 70 people, and we were both the interns, so not really cute. But the big question is, why is this like this? Because this is not something that is just happening now, that women don't really get anything into space. This has been going on for centuries. Because humans have been interested in space since we are humans. NASA has a sentence saying that humanity's interest in the heavens has been universal and enduring. Humans are driven to explore the unknown, discover new worlds, push the boundaries of our scientific and technical limits, and then push further. I think this is very true because whenever we look even at before history, so before we have written documents of everything that was going on, we can tell that everyone was building structures to track solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, all of the things that are related to the movement of the celestial bodies over us. And as we broadened our knowledge and became more advanced and we had more progress in science and technology, we just broadened that knowledge. So we went on to having astronomers during the Middle Ages. This is a little bit of a complex topic because astronomers were much earlier in the Arabic world and in Asia. They did amazing discoveries. In the West, it was a little bit later because the church and the Earth being at the center of everything and all of these things that you already know. But the one thing that they had in common is that astronomy and space science was something specifically for men. Women were never allowed to be in there because they would be called witches and burned at the stake. Because are you really doing anything with your life if you were not have been called a witch and burned at the stake in that year? Yeah. So all of this kind of culminated with Copernicus in 1543, when he revolutionized astronomy and it became much more of a science, so not someone kind of looking into the sky, but like in actual science. And then that's when women were completely out of it. Before they were not allowed, then they were even less allowed. This went on for a while, as in everything in science. But then during the 20th century, we started really pushing the boundaries, and we were not only interested in looking at the sky, but we wanted to go there. Especially during the Cold War, the efforts towards space exploration were so big, and then we started having people in orbit, in outer space, the first spacewalk, and women were still not allowed to do anything, right? On the Soviet side, there were women in space. There were two, Valentina Tereshenko. In 1963, she was the first woman in orbit. And then Svetlana Savitskaya, I'm probably murdering the name. She was the first woman to do a spacewalk, which was huge because this was in 1982. And at that moment, NASA was still not sending any women into space because they, women, that's the moment where they were starting to ask, okay, if we actually send women in space for like 2 days, do they need 100 tampons or is that not enough? So things were not going really well, and towards the end of the Cold War, then they started thinking, yeah, maybe we actually need to put some more effort into sending women in space, and then they got the Mercury 13, which were a very motivated group of women, 13 women, that excelled in all of the physical and technical exams to be astronauts. They were very ready. Many of them got higher grades than the male counterparts, and they were ready to be sent to space in a mission. But then they said, oh, you know what? Illegal for women to go to space. They didn't go to space. Still, one of them made it to space in 2021 at 82 years old, when she was allowed to go on a low orbit space flight. And she became also the oldest person to have ever been to space. So it was kind of a retribution to their work, but they went on history as being the most prepared group of people on Earth to be out. And then someone saying, we don't really want you, we're just gonna send someone that is less prepared than you, but was born a male. So that was terrible for space exploration. However, not only for astronauts, but on Earth, so on the control, it was happening the same. I'm guessing many of you know Margaret Hamilton, who wrote the code for the Apollo mission, so we owe her the fact that we set foot on the moon. And she was widely unrecognized for her work for decades, until barely a couple years ago, when people actually started saying, hey, you know what, she did the work. And then some men said, no, we're gonna say we did this and take the effort, which is what happens in science very often. But not only her, I think there was a very good movie based on a very good book that came out not so long ago, Hidden Figures, about the women that were running the math in NASA. Their names are Katherine Goble-Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. They were not only women, which bad already, but they were also African American. So they were not allowed to be in the same building as everyone else. They had to send the reports through different channels because they could not enter the main headquarters where they should have been in order to make everything efficient. So things were really bad until really not so long ago. Now things are better, thankfully. In 2022, ESA did a program for recruiting astronauts. They recruited 17 astronauts, about 50% are women, which is crazy. Not only do we have now women, but inclusion is not only about the women and men, but now ESA also has a program for testing how to enable space exploration for people with physical disabilities. It's called FLY, it's like fly with an exclamation mark. And it's really important because if we are actually trying to build a structure in which we go to space often and it becomes more of a norm than science, how it is now, it is science fiction almost, we need to take everyone into account. Very recently, we also got, NASA recruited the first hijabi astronaut. We also had the first Native American woman going to the International Space Station, one of the first female Indian astronauts. It is going great. So we would think, wow, we have made it. Women are in space, women are in NASA and ESA, we do it, right? We kind of do, but not really so good. If any of you has social media and you decide to follow some of the astronauts or any space-related field person on Instagram, it is absolutely terrible. Many of them have science divulgation channels where they show what they do, how to be an astronaut, how to do science, what they do in a technical level. And you will read the comments where, I mean, you always have a bunch of positive comments like, oh, what you do is amazing. And then you have a bunch of comments like, why do you want to go to space when you could be a mother? Or don't your children miss you? Or what does your husband think about this? So the truth is there are some people that are very active on social media like Kelly Gerardi and Haley Arsenault. They are both astronauts and they are both active on social media showing how difficult it is to have the pressure of being a woman in something like this. They show all the comments, and especially Haley Arsenault, you should look her up. She is also a big advocate for chemo treatment because she went through leukemia. She was told she would not survive. She survived, she went on to being an astronaut and now has a bunch of programs also for people who have chronic disabilities resulting of medical treatment like this. So they also get the access like the one that ESA is trying to provide for people with physical disabilities. So I know this is a little bit of a roller coaster, like we didn't have it, then we had it, but we really don't, but we're on it. So what I want to say is that something that was such science fiction less than 100 years ago, as space exploration, went from being a completely white, male-dominated field into being something that is much more inclusive. And although we have the policies and we have the structures to change this, the public opinion is still something that we have to work on, although that is something that happens in every field, especially with women in STEM or women in positions of power or technical achievements. But the truth is, change is possible. We can make policies, we can change the structure, we can change the system. And if we could do it in less than 100 years for something so wild as sending people on spacewalks around Earth, we can do it on everything. So I think space exploration is something that should be a role model to everything, where you say, if you want to do it, you can do it, you can achieve it, you just need the right policies in place, you need to go against the system until you are inside the system, and then it will work out. So I hope you learned something about the history of space exploration, and I hope this was motivating enough to say that you can do anything that you want to do if you try hard enough and don't let people tell you that you are not valid just because of whatever reason they say. So thank you very much for your attention. And I don't know if you have any questions. We have time for questions, no? Yes, yes. Oh, perfect. Yeah, maybe the question is, when do we go to dinner? Space community. So I think this is a really interesting question, because it's something that policy-wise we have the same opportunities as men, so we can access them, but the truth is we don't really get the same access, we don't get the same education, we have so many other prejudices and things that we have to fight against. So I think one of the most effective things is visibility, having role models, having reference. And I think that's why I really love these women that are super active on TikTok and on Instagram. They just post everything they do on their day, whether it's going to the White House to speak to important people, or when they're going to space. But they also post how it is to be like a mother and have a child that you have to leave for like 6 months because you're going on a mission to do some testing. So I think visibility and having role models and making sure that these role models are given a voice and they're given a safe place a safe space to be seen, that is the most important thing, because the policy change is there. What we need is a generational or like a societal point of view change at this point. Thank you so much for your talk. I really appreciated the value that you put on policy, because in my field, I'm a software engineer. I work with robots and AI. There's this view that engineers should not concern themselves with policy making, but yeah, we should stay out of that, and whatever regulations will come, we will try to work around them. And of course, being a woman in this field, I slightly disagree with this. I think that engineers should get involved with policy. And so I wanted to ask you, like, how is it that that in space matters there are engineers doing policy making, or is it so? Yeah, there's a bunch of change, because there are many things that were not, or I have a lot of examples of the US of things that were not regulated. So NASA is like an organization, so it's not like the military, but they're also not civilians, so they're public servants. And there was the case of a Vietnamese astronaut that got sexually assaulted, and then the people faced barely any consequences because they were not judged by the military law, they were also not judged by the civil law. It was like this public servant in between, and she went and fought and she did policy change for these people to be held accountable. We have the policies for allowing people with chronic disabilities and all of these things. So I think it's really important to make policies because it's important to make policies in every regard, but especially in things that are so new and that are sort of like untouched by policy. We need to make sure that when we go forward, we do it in the right direction and we don't start with the wrong foot and have a bunch of problems that just make everything go wrong from the beginning. Thank you.
Can you share the name of the two women that you said for Instagram maybe?
Yeah, so the first one is Kelly Gerardi. Or, yeah, I can write it down or I can send them in the spam chat. I'm not sure. Wait. And, oh, here. There's also another one that is called, her Instagram handle is this Pace Girl. She also did a bunch of policy changing by going into the White House and complaining that women were being treated unfairly in engineering environments concerning space. And she also got a bunch of changes done. Now she's a she has the New York bestseller for science for kids and so on. So all of these women are truly remarkable. And if you read the comments, many of them are great, but also some are just like, okay, you are, how did you get the audacity to write these kind of comments to these people? Really, I'm flabbergasted. The audacity, right? Are there any other questions? Then I would like, oh yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask. So there is a Spanish woman, Sara Garcia, something else. I think she's a candidate to be an astronaut, right? Do you have like examples? I don't know if she's like a good example of it. I was just wondering on like from a Spanish level, who are maybe some people that might be women that might be like references in like our context.
So
or maybe Germany, maybe there aren't many. I don't know.
I'm not sure because most of this like social media reference are coming from the US because it's where like the people get I think more visibility. But you have an example.
There's Samantha Cristoforetti from Italy.
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, it's Samantha with an H, I think, and the surname is Cristoforetti with a double T.
Yeah, she has spent a lot of time in the International Space Station, and she even has her own Barbie. So.
True. People were shitting on her for having short hair.
And there's a bunch of other astronauts, female astronauts who do a lot of nice work on Instagram and social media.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people doing advocacy, public image, and visibility. All right, any more questions? Then I would like to thank you very much for being here so late, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.